new to being
Hold on, let
I'm
me.
new to being part of a religious community, but I was thinking about like how religious communities over the centuries have responded to war. You know, you take a position, all war is bad. You try to say what's a just war and unjust war. I even thought about like that session we had, one of the sessions on Hinduism, we were discussing the Bhagavad Gita and, the battle that Arjuna is facing and how he reacts.
Yes.
So that, just throwing out a few thoughts there about what we might discuss today and go back to Karen Armstrong next week. That's, again, just a few thoughts.
Okay, that's interesting. The Bhagavad Gita, he would mention, that's fascinating that how you would tie that in. Also, there's a sub thing in all of this, which I don't know if there's no reason why any of you would have followed this. Ukraine's Orthodox Church was tired of being run by the Russian Orthodox Church.
I was just going to ask about Ukraine's Orthodox Church and the ties to Russia. Wow.
Let me get there now. Paciencia, tranquilo. I should never tell anybody patience and be calm. That is so embarrassing. I am the last person on this planet who should say to anybody, be patient and calm. I apologize profusely, Maureen. I apologize profusely. All right. The Ukrainians were tired. It's the same service, but the culture is very, very, very different. So the Ukrainians broke from the Russian Orthodox Church, and I guarantee you the first thing they're going to do with a land grab is try to make all of those churches, which look Orthodox, they are, and have the same liturgy, but the culture and the people that make up those congregations and the clergy that make up those congregations are Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian dialect, and they're not going to want the Russians in there again. So
would they try to make overtures towards the Greek Orthodox, like going more towards Western Europe, you think?
Absolutely. Well, the problem is, I didn't want to get off of the thing on Orthodoxy, but just let me say, Orthodoxy is more complex than Protestantism.
Yeah, can I jump in here?
Go ahead.
Because there is a Ukrainian Catholic church near where I live here, and I have been to their services. And they actually, as a political strategy, pledge allegiance to the Roman Pope as it is now, figuring that this gives them more independence than if they have one kind of liturgy and another kind of political alliance, then they can do what they want. That was what it was explained to me.
Yeah, that's right. You were going to find, well, first of all, go back to Maureen's question. There is tremendous antipathy between the Russian Orthodox and the Greek Orthodox. The Greek Orthodox were it. This was the if you will, this is where, remember, Constantinople. Constantinople is where the second Rome was. And this is where Orthodoxy, Christianity, really flowered and flourished. It is a part of Christianity, let's see if I can do this quickly and fairly, that is not interested in dotting I's and crossing T's. It is interested in a more spiritual feeling, deeply intuitive. As Karen Armstrong said in an article when she was reviewing a book in the New York Times, you're never going to get the Trinity looking at it the way Westerners do, trying to dot the I's and cross the T's is very cold scholasticism. The only way you're going to really ever understand the doctrine of the Trinity is the way the Orthodox do, which is a blending of senses and a sense that you are touched literally by and feel by the Spirit of God. Their liturgy is designed so that during communion, it is understood that heaven and earth touch. That is the understanding. And when you look at an icon, you're just not looking at a painting. The icon talks back to you, and it's a window. It's a window into the divine, and the divine and a window into you. This is deeply, deeply mystical and spiritual, meaning these in very polite and kind ways. Whereas in the West, we are taught every I must be crossed, every T must T crossed, every I dotted. It's very, very logical. You get Aquinas's 5 theories for the existence of God. You get all this scholastic stuff, and Eastern Orthodoxy has resisted that. yes, they've got theologians and things like that, but they've been very resistant in defining things to the exact nth, because you can't. How do you define the Spirit of God looking at you and you're looking at it? How do you even begin to define that? How do you put that into words? They talk about mysterious tremendums and things. They don't want to get into exactness of what communion is, exactness of this. So their whole style is, and their services are not tailor-made for somebody like me who can't sit still. They're 3 hours long. And the idea behind this is, go back to the emperor. When you went to visit the Roman emperor, you did not stop in and have an appointment and wait for an hour. You waited and waited and waited. And when you got to see the emperor, the palace was designed. You came here and you did a bunch of stuff. Then you came here and did a bunch of stuff. Then you came here and did a bunch of stuff. There were several rooms you went through, several processes you went through before you finally got to see the emperor. If you did all of that for a mundane human emperor, how much more do you do for God? You do not rush to see God. Thank you. You do not rush to experience God. You do not bring in the material world as you go to glimpse the divine. And so for somebody like me, who's genetically impossible to sit still, and for somebody who likes to have things on the go, I don't get this. I mean, I understand it intellectually, but they're trying to say, no, your Westernness has taken away from the mystery. The things that you can feel, but you can't always quantify. Now, if that is making any sense, and the idea again that every divine liturgy at the high point is when heaven and earth touch for a moment. And I'm just giving you a quick overview. Now, Greece, with Constantinople being in part of the Greece and everything, was the mother, if you will, of Orthodoxy. This is where Rome was excommunicated in the 11th century, the 1000s. It was on the high altar of Hagia Sophia. That the pontiff of Rome was excommunicated and vice versa. This all took place here. Now, what happened is emissaries went up to Kiev, or I'm not sure how we're supposed to pronounce that correctly today, and they brought with them Orthodoxy, and the emperor in Orthodoxy adopted Orthodoxy. But as you take a look, as the geography grew and people grew, by sheer numbers, quote unquote, Russian Orthodoxy outnumbered Greek Orthodoxy very, very quickly. And then you get geopolitics. You see where this is going to go. And Russian Orthodoxy grabs. And finally, Russian Orthodoxy made the claim it was the third Rome. You had the old Rome, the second Rome in Constantinople. But since Constantinople fell, it now takes over being the new Rome, the third Rome. The Greeks were furious, but they had no money, no population to speak of. I mean, how you can compare a few million Greeks to 100 million Russians that are Orthodox? The Russian Orthodox cathedrals were enormous. Their monasteries were enormous. The money was enormous. That you just go, they were swamped. But the Greeks said we were here first. So the competition in politics amongst the Orthodox communities is absolutely incredible. It makes Protestants look like also-rans. Seriously, I'm serious. I know that's hard to believe, but it does. Now, the other thing that Maureen pointed out, no, where is it? Karen Paul pointed out, what do you do if you are, and if you've looked at a map, and you've all seen this, Poland didn't exist for a while. And then it existed, then it didn't exist. And Russia was here, Russia was there. And if you've seen the maps of Europe, and over the last 500 years, things come, they go, they come, they go. The land is the same, but where the maps are changes. Now, what if you do, if you're an Orthodox church, and you're caught between Catholic Poles, Russian Orthodox, so some Ukrainians did, and now they have wound up in a minority, is you say you're Ukrainian in your Orthodox liturgy. You adopt Orthodoxy as your way of doing religion, but you ally yourself with Rome so you can have an ally so the Poles won't gobble you up because you're Catholic too. It was actually a cool strategy move until time moved on. And so Ukrainian Catholics are now a tiny minority. Ukrainian Orthodox are the majority of the country, and they're not Russian Orthodox politically or geographically. So this is going to be another mess that we've gotten ourselves into. So when Danny talks about religion, people talk about religion. It's interesting. We're operating on a number of levels. Is there such thing as a just war? Danny brings it up about the Bhagavad Gita. Are there sometimes your dharma means you must right the wrongs? Big question. Now, let's let's put this realistic. Nobody knows, and I'm not sure Putin knows what he's doing. Just very, very quickly, he did not expect the resistance that he has gotten in Ukraine. Evidently, the Ukrainians have inflicted some serious casualties that they were not expecting. And the timeline of getting to where they wanted to be has not been met. And the pesky Jewish Ukrainian president has defied all stuff, and it's not turning out the way he thought. The second thing is, well, there are a number of things that were pointed out in that article. The second thing is, I don't know if Putin knows what he wants to do, but if he decides to get mad and goes to the Balkans, I mean, to the Baltic, where Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are, these are members of NATO. Now, bringing up Danny's question, if he attacks Lithuania, Estonia, or Latvia, there will be a massive pushback from these three countries, but then we have to get involved. Now the question comes up, what is, using Danny going back to the gate, what is our dharma? What is our responsibility? We have allies. Do we, in fact, do what we said with the treaty, or do we back out?
To Article 5 of the NATO contract, if one country is attacked, all countries are attacked.
Correct. NATO, yeah.
Hey guys, here, this is my friend Jane.
Hi, Jane.
She's visiting for a moment.
Okay. By the way, before we go further, I want to tell you my
Well.
my disappointment with Maureen Sullivan. I'm going to make this very blunt.
Okay.
Everybody needs to hear this. Maureen had an opportunity to donate a relic to All Souls.
So,
Had the opportunity. Liberal congregations do not have relics. We had an opportunity.
you did not want an arthritic pustule for a relic.
We wanted the finger.
No, I still have the finger. I still have the finger.
You had an
It has not
opportunity
been-
to donate the finger to be a marvelous first relic in liberal religion. And you turned that down.
Yes, I did.
Moving
Hey,
along.
here's the puppies. They're attacking Jane.
All right. Now, Danny just pulled up the same thing, the article again. The article says this is our responsibility. If we say we're going to be an ally, are we going to be an ally or not? Now, I take this very seriously. If I say
Minister.
that if I'm living,
And Pat's minister too. She belongs to this church as well.
who? Oh,
And
okay,
this is my
Maureen. we
friend
can hear you.
Roy.
Well, hold on. Let me-
Sorry.
Um,
That's my friend Roy in Washington. He's
Brian.
also got him roped into this congregation.
Maureen, we can
And
still hear
you.
you. Maureen.
Oh,
Okay, there we go. All righty, everybody. So the question comes up in, very serious question. Nobody knows what Putin's going to do, but here's one that I worry about. Did you see what Anonymous did yesterday, Hackers Inc.? They went into the Russian a thing that listed all the military generals, and they published the military generals' names and addresses for the whole world. Did you miss that? You did? Did you miss that?
yeah,
They went in and hacked it all. They hacked all the Russians generals, their names, their addresses, their emails, and then they put it on the GOP donors list.
Superb.
Anonymous, yes, they declared war against Putin and Russia. And so there's a whole number of things here, which I say, why I just throw out here just very, very quickly. Hackers Anonymous went after the Russians. These are hackers that are better than the Russian hackers. So that's an interesting thing. Number two, I didn't know if you saw, you didn't have a chance to read Friedman's article. He pointed out something that I didn't know. China's #1 trading partner right now is the European Union. They do not want their trade. They do not have that much trade with Russia. The European Union, yes, and they cannot afford to have that disrupted. They need the money. They also are surprised at the number of people who trade with Ukraine. Now, if Putin tries to take over a landmass that size with 44 million people who don't want him there, He couldn't do that with Afghanistan, which is which is not Ukraine and had much less population, half the population, and nothing like the resistance that Ukraine's going to put up. So you've got trading issues, you've got land issues, you've got people who really don't want you there, and you've got people who are really ticked off. It's interesting to see, by the way, they put a pub thing out today of all the people who loved Putin and Russia in Europe. Suddenly, the about face was magnificent, including the head of Hungary, who has been a pain in the butt for everybody lately, and he turned around completely. I think because he found out the latest poll showed that 85% of people in Hungary wanted to remain in the European Union, and that was made clear to him. And the fact that he could get toppled by the Russians did not set very well. So you're seeing something that I never thought I'd never see. For the first time ever, it looks like in modern history that the European Union has finally united on something. And they've been very good about it. It really surprised me. Now, Doug, one problem that's been an issue is Germany. Germany still is not allowing goods of its goods to go to Ukraine. And that has been a massive, massive issue with the allies in Germany. There was a big article on that today asking why is Germany refusing? Now, Doug, you're not German, but I'm just saying that.
I think it was military support.
Right.
There's-
And there's a lot of military support that's being held up. Now, oddly enough, this comes as a big surprise. The English have moved a ton of stuff to Ukraine. Now, I don't know if this is Emperor Johnson's idea of remaining in good grace with the United Kingdom's population, but the English have supplied a huge amount of weapons, and it turns out from the battlefront.
Have they gotten past the border of England?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say the number one thing that's been helping the Ukrainians is shoulder-fired missiles from the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
This has evidently taken down tanks, airplanes, and it's all from the United Kingdom. There's evidently a very advanced kind of thing you put on your shoulder. It can
Stinger.
wipe out tanks and everything else, and it's all from the United
Stinger.
Kingdom.
It's called a Stinger, but it's actually come from the States. So it's an American weapon, but the UK has a lot of them, and they've made them available to Ukraine.
And so I'm just saying a lot of things are in play here. Number one, nobody knows what Putin is really doing. I think we all got played because we're nice. We tried diplomacy. I don't think he ever took diplomacy seriously, honestly. I think he played us, but it's in, we always try to go and say, let's do the right thing. You know who else got played were the Chinese. Don't think for a minute the Chinese are happy about this either, because they've lost trading partners and they did not want a war coming up, because if this gets crazy, the Chinese are stuck in a situation they don't like. One thing that's very clear about Chinese law is they like order. They like order and they like things done in a certain way. This does not fit their playbook. And they were not informed about this, by the way. So China is placed in a very unenviable position, trading partners. And now there's something that Friedman pointed out that I'd never thought about before, and probably you have. This is the first war we've ever seen on a world kind of basis like this, where TikTok, cell phones, is going to show you what's going on as it happens. You can say, like Putin has said, and the Russians said, we have not bombed any civilian targets. You see it right there on a phone going all over the world. We've not hurt any children. It's all over the world. This is a kind of thing you did not have in 1945, and you didn't have it in the 1960s or 1970s, but the world is wired now. And you can try to say what you want to say, but when the whole world is looking at bombed out civilian apartments and seeing people on fire and seeing this in real time, in real life, that has changed everything. Now, Friedman mentioned something else, which I hadn't thought about, was influencers. I hate that phrase, but influencers. He pointed out in this article, Celine Goma has more followers on Instagram than people have in Russia. She has almost 300 million followers. Now, Celine Goma evidently has had several physical issues, and mental issues. And she's been very, very brave in confronting them. And people love her humanity, the way she has dealt with some serious physical and emotional issues. And she's been very upfront about it, and people have attached to her. When you get other people like that and they say this is wrong and this is bad, you're getting moral voices that are not politicians. You're getting real, genuine people with whom you connect. We've never had that before. I mean, when Neville Chamberlain says, I have a piece of paper, I mean, most people didn't connect that. I mean, it was all by black and white. It was film. It was stuff like this. Now you're getting stuff real time. It's wired now, and we've never had to deal with that before. We got scenes in Vietnam, but we got them way after the fact. But this is real time.
The other thing, Doc, is you have the capability now of verifying footage so that Putin's misinformation attempts can be verified. And, you know, you can look at the
right.
underlying data, the metadata of the film, of the footage, and say, well, no, this was not today. This was 3 weeks ago. And
Yes.
that, you know, or it wasn't here. This was in
Yes.
Finland at some war games in Finland. So
Yes,
that's what you have.
If people take the time to look into it. Others just take it for face value and then repost it. And
Yeah.
then it starts running on its own.
Yeah.
Doug, I assume people are not going to take the time and mess it up. What caught me off guard is the number of people that are now reacting against Putin on a number of different levels.
In Russia as well.
Yes. And that's what amazed me. Now, the thing we have here is I think he's a loose cannon. When you go threatening everybody, you mess with us, basically said, I'll nuke you. I mean, that's basically what he said.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what he said, though. That's what everybody assumes he said.
Okay, go ahead. Dana. Go
But
ahead.
his words really freaked me out because I read it a little differently.
Go ahead.
He said the world is going to see what they've never seen before. Well, the world has seen nukes before, but what we haven't seen is cyber warfare. I mean, complete and total cyber warfare. And if anybody's got the capability, he does.
Okay, now there are two other things, by the way, I'd like to throw out. I think the United States, I hope I'm right about this, has been very, very cool in not mentioning our cyber abilities. I'm hoping that we have a vast array of cyber ability that we have not mentioned on purpose. I'm also wondering where Mossad fits in all of this. One of the top hackers in the world is Mossad from Israel, and I'm wondering where they're going to fit. Anonymous has already spilled the beans already yesterday in an incredible way. And this is, I don't know who they are, where they're located. The thing that worries me, and I hope this will freak everybody out because it's freaked me out. So Nanette says to Nanette, and Nanette says, hey, Claus, did you see this cyber attack? And I said, yeah, I saw the cyber attack back. While we are comparing cyber attacks, there is in whatever the tech universe, a glitch that takes place in a missile silo and it launches a missile. Not intentional. Nobody pressed a button. Nobody did anything. But with all the cyber attack, with all the tech going on, something somehow gets rewired and off a missile goes. And it winds up in Boris Johnson's backyard. Now, unfortunately, if that hits Boris Johnson, it has a fallout on Ron, which is too bad. I'm sorry about that, Ron.
I'll take the hit if it gets rid of Boris.
I mean, it may ruin his hair. I mean, it's simply limited to his hair.
I don't think that's quite impossible, but I would assume that military sites, especially nuclear ones, the best protected, probably the most vulnerable to cyber warfare is just, you know, more pedestrian everyday stuff. And yeah, both sides, I'm sure everybody's got cyber warfare capabilities these days. Yeah, Russia could really be badly crippled by cyber war, but probably, you know, the most prosperous nations like the United States have even more to lose than a place like Russia is the problem. My one other thought is hearing Putin rant on these days. I tend to think he's been, you know, he listened to Donald Trump and he's copying him. I swear. That thought came to my mind.
I have tried not to mention, and I will not mention his name, the former president. I will not ruin our sacred space by the profanity of that name. I take names seriously, but his cheering on of Putin's savviness and some of the things that we have heard, I thought I would never hear Americans say at a time like this.
It's bordering on treason.
Yeah,
I was dumbfounded. I never thought, and I was glad to see the pushback that has come from some of the people. But I think that let me just tell you, I hope a appropriate guess. Let me just see if this would be, you know how things go round and things cycle and things, when you read fiction, things get really, really bad, and then out of nowhere, something comes up and it saves the day. I would like to see that now that COVID is retreating more and more and more, wouldn't it be wonderful if this summer a couple of things happened, that we got back almost to the way, not quite, but almost to the way things were before COVID, and they started actually hiring for the infrastructure stuff. And wouldn't it be nice along with that, with the upkick in the economy, that Putin had some things happen, that everything had to stop, though things to be reset. Things happened that none of us saw, none of us contemplated. A revolt from his generals, a revolt from this, a revolt from that. Something happens that you and I hadn't counted on. And wouldn't that be fascinating if all of this then did 180 degrees by the end of the summer, and all of those that were thinking that he is savvy and cool and we need to get rid of the old man in the White House, blah, 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 suddenly turns around. I think we are in wintertime in more ways than one, but winter is followed by spring and summer. Now, I want to read something to you, by the way, how there's another playbook that Putin is following, and I want to read this to you. A groundbreaking 10-year study on the behavior of chimpanzees was reported in Current Biology, reveals that humanity's closest living relative expresses a propensity for human-like warfare, in which chimps males patrol their group's territory and violently annex the territory of other groups as they pursue land and resources. Does this sound familiar as what's happening right now? The study has led many to conclude that war is an innate behavior with genetic roots extending millions of years. Talk about genocides. Chimps genocide other chimps and other troops. They will kill them and eat them incredibly violently. There are only 3 groups on this planet that practice genocide. Do you know who they are? Chimpanzees. Does anybody who number 2 is? Us. And number 3, wolves.
I thought we would be number 1.
Well, no, all three is what I'm saying. Practice this now as we speak. We're the only groups on the entire planet that practice this, that actually do this. And so the idea of patrolling your land and violently seizing land because you want it is innately inherent within our species. And so the only way that that this is repelled is when you get another troop that's bigger and stronger and pushes back. So the question is, how far will Putin go? And I don't know if anybody knows the answer to that. Anybody have any ideas? Because I mean, does he really want to start? The Poles would welcome our allies in NATO. Is he really going to invade Poland? Is he going to chase Ukrainians into Poland? Is he going to go into Romania? Because the Romanians already have American soldiers in Romania now. You take a look at Eastern Europe, you take a Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. And, and Doug, it'll be interesting to see what Finland decides.
Yeah, Finland is nervous. They're not part of NATO, nor is Sweden. But yeah, Finland had its own winter wars during World War II with the Soviet Union, fought them back.
And Finland had a lot of acquiescence to the Soviet Union, just trying to keep the peace. So yeah, I can imagine that Finland would be nervous.
Yeah.
So, the question is, will we push back? I am not ruling out that Putin does. I don't think Putin knows what he wants to do. When I
Thought it
say
would be
that,
easier.
huh?
He thought it would be easier, like you said.
I don't think he expected, I don't think, first of all, I don't think he really expected the sanctions to really kick in the way that they're kicking in. Number two, I don't think he expected Europe to be united at all. Number three, I think he forgot, as certainly I forgot and everybody else forgot, this is wired. Everybody's seeing this now. He can have all the propaganda he wants, but when he's saying up here, oh, we didn't do anything, and you're seeing all over TikTok, all over the world, apartments being bombed and kids being killed and dead on the floor. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but then you see real live pictures. You do a split screen. We're not doing anything. And then you see the split screen over here. I don't think any of us realize being wired has changed things. And I don't think the trading issues of money, we realized how much China was involved in the European Union trade bloc. I certainly wasn't aware of that until Thomas Friedman pointed out the numbers.
But China is not going to go against Russia.
No, but it's not going to support it either, is what I'm trying to say. And with Putin, you just don't know right now what's going to happen. And when I say about Putin, when you look at personalities, what do you do when somebody thinks they're in control and they suddenly find out they're not as control as much as they think they are? How do people react? How do people react when they feel like they're getting pushed back? How dare you push back at me? I can almost feel the anger. Who do you think? I'm liberating you. You didn't exist to begin with. You have no right. You didn't exist. We let you be. This is us. You come back. And then how dare you? And I can just see the anger building and wondering, how far that goes.
I think just out of a sense of self-preservation that Putin will threaten the West and NATO, but he won't actually move militarily. I think he's going to have his hands full with Ukraine for a while. I wish I could see some way out of this, but I think he's prepared to take casualties and stay in Ukraine for a long time until he wins.
I don't know if he can win in Ukraine, though. Daniel, I don't know if he can win because there are too many people in this country that don't want him there. And they're going to have armaments coming across the border all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, remember now, they're going to be getting stuff supplied to them all the time. And that's going to be a major issue. You're going to get those kinds of Stinger missiles that Ron was, they're not going to stop. And he's got a real problem. How does he go to the Polish border, not accidentally shoot on American soldiers? He does that, he's really in trouble.
I don't think that he counted on Zelensky to be as strong as he is being. This is a guy who was a comic.
Right.
Before he was elected president. And I don't think that Putin ever took him seriously and thought that this guy is going to be a pushover. But instead, when Putin is talking about, Nazism, we have to fight Nazis in Ukraine again.
The president's
and
Jewish.
Zelensky is Jewish.
Yeah.
I think that that's going to impact in ways he hadn't expected.
If Zelensky is murdered by the Russians, that will be beyond. I mean, that's something you can't take back. That's something.
Remember that Belarus has also been pressuring Poland, right, with the manufactured refugee crisis. So I would be watching Belarus as well.
Yeah, they're on Russia's side.
What'd you say, Roy? I can't hear. Roy, we can't hear you. Go ahead.
I was saying Georgia, Chechnya, they could decide that now is a good time to assert independence as well.
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't that
There's
be
all
something?
kinds of things on the field. Good.
Yeah, and East Ossetia as well.
So, you on Pandora's box. And now we've got the good points about the geography. I forgot about that. There's East Ossetia, there's Georgia, others who may have a chance because, Putin's army, he's got 200 million people, 200,000 soldiers there. But how big is the Russian army? I mean, how stretched out can it get? Remember, by the way, one thing I forgot is you've got to resupply all the weapons. You've got to resupply the shells. and all the rest of that. Weapons, by the way, tanks break down, things break down. You need gasoline, you need oil, you need weapons. Where's that coming from? You do not have an unlimited supply of parts, weapons, oil, and gas. And that's one of the things
Well, it could be coming from China.
You know, it's the supply chain. It's so easy, so many, like in war, it's so easy to hit a supply chain and try to cut off. And that's what the Russians did to the Germans.
Well, I think that the Chinese really don't want to get involved in this. I really, really don't think they want to get involved. They're not going to stab Russia in the back, but I don't think they're going to get the support that I think they're hoping that they can just kind of stay like away, because it's not in their interest. They're having some major problems right now financially as well.
They can get away with a lot of things while the world is distracted with Russia.
Possibly. I agree. I don't think the Chinese will get that involved in this. I mean, I think they're not happy. I personally think, like 2 weeks ago, when Biden and some others saying the invasion of Ukraine is imminent, I did say, I think that Putin will wait till after the Olympics in Beijing are over, because he doesn't want to piss off the Chinese that much. But, the Chinese will express their indirect displeasure, but I don't think they're going to get involved in this one way or the other. So.
Maury, one area what I disagree with you is that, did you know how accurate our intelligence was, by the way? Did you all follow? We knew exactly what was going on, when it was going on. Did you?
Yes, I was following that, and they predicted the
Incredibly
false
accurate.
flag operations and all of that. Yeah.
It was, no, what I'm saying
It was
is, I don't
good.
think the Chinese can get away with just doing what they want because people are distracted. Our intelligence turned out to be far more accurate than I was really dumbfounded. I don't know how they got that stuff, but they got communiques. They knew exactly what generals were thinking. They knew what the problems. They nailed it exactly. That really
Right, but what I mean by the Chinese getting away with stuff is, while we're distracted with Russia, the Chinese are going to cement even more of their relationships with important countries in Africa and Latin America that produce the raw chemicals, the minerals that are necessary for lithium-powered batteries, electric cars, cell phones, polonium, palladium, all of those things. That while we're worried about what's going on in Russia and Ukraine, the Chinese are going to be buying up all these local companies. And then fast forward, when we're trying to be energy sufficient by doing having more electric vehicles, solar panels, where are we going to buy those raw materials from?
I think you'd be right a year ago, 2 years ago, but I think it's all changed. I think I was reading an article about what the European Union has done in Africa in the last year, because China has had problems financially and has problems in China right now, by the way, is not the great powerhouse you think it is. It is on one level, but they're having a lot of issues with poverty, a lot of issues environmentally, a lot of issues. Ukraine gives them a lot of wheat. They're going to have problems with wheat because where does a lot of their stuff come from? Take a look
Yeah,
at
Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. That has
And
been
China.
true for hundreds of years.
China is reliant upon a lot of stuff outside of China. So it cuts both ways. And I think this time we're seeing a sanction thing that we've never seen before. I mean, everything is new. So I'm not sure that any of our templates are even remotely accurate right now. I think everything is totally up in the air. Yeah. By the way,
Thing about wars, they have unpredictable outcomes.
absolutely.
Also, as far as the military situation goes, I think it's a good idea to remember the term "the fog of war." This war is only like 3 days old, so far. It's hard to know exactly what things will look like a week from now, a month from now. Very hard.
A month from now will probably seem like, for us, years. I don't know. Have you all noticed that time has totally been rearranged since we had COVID?
Yeah.
Have any of
Definitely.
you noticed that you seemed like the last 2 years seemed like a decade? Maybe if it's my age, but it seems to me that the last 2 years have been like a decade. It's that it was only March 2 years ago that we had all of this. And look at all the stuff that's happened. We now have a class on Zoom. The congregation is hybrid. We're doing all this stuff all the time, which would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. And I've lost like a decade. Am I the only one? Does anybody else find it? Do you find that sometimes you're in days of the week and you're not sure which day it is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the time.
Yes.
And you're not impaired, for heaven's sake. It's just that things run and bleed into each other. Poor word.
I thought it was my age. Maybe not.
Well, you are older than me, Nanette.
I'm actually nostalgic for the early days of the pandemic, because when we really were on lockdown, because I've been told I'm going to have to be going back to the office on March 28th. And I am not at all happy about that, because I think I work much better at home, uninterrupted. I can do everything, and going back to the office feels like a punishment to me.
Now, Doug, let's go around very, very quickly. Pat's at home, Nanette's at home. Ron, do you work from home or do you work from an office?
Very fortunate in that I work from home. I can work from home with what I do.
Doug, what about you? How are you, do you go to an office today or what?
Usually, yes. It's half and half. I mean, I was in the office 2 days this past week and 3 days at home. The week before I was in 5 days in the office.
Are they good about masks and making sure everything is sprayed down?
Oh yeah, well, masks are required right now. We're at the level, whatever it is, 5 or something like that, where you're supposed to wear a mask at your desk as well, as if there's someone within 5-6 feet of you. But I'm in an office usually where there's people just, maybe 10 feet or more away from me, so I don't wear a mask if we're that far away from each other.
John's at home, Pat's at home, AJ's at home. Holly, are you going into when you're still working in the medical field? Are you go to an actual building?
I've gone to the building ever since, even when we were in lockdown, because I had to do my virtuals from the clinic. So I've always been working in the clinic. We have to wear masks and glasses.
Okay. Now, Maureen is talking about going back. Now, your friend is, I'm trying to remember, that is Zelda Fritz, right?
Jane,
Jane
she's
von Stolf. Yes, I remember her. Yes.
yeah,
Jane, are you at home or are you in the office?
She works with me, but she lives in Las Vegas. She's a dog handler.
Oh,
So
okay.
she has a customs dog.
Okay. Roy, now I know you're an attorney. Do you do most of your work now are hybrid where you go to the office sometimes? Do you do office from home? How do you work?
I gave up my office about a year and a half ago, and it's
I'm
been
sorry, we
great.
can't hear you. Again?
I'm sorry. I gave up my office about a year and a half ago. I don't, I mean, I really love working from home. I've done this sort of in stages, because giving up the office was hard, in the sense that I missed it. I loved my office, and it was a great place to spend time. But then I came home and I moved into my home office, and I started enjoying that too. And then I went on a trip and had to isolate up in the master bedroom for about a week, and discovered that I liked working up here even better. So now my office is got the computer sitting on the bed, and this is so it's like I've gone from commuting a half an hour through the woods into the city to down a flight of stairs, and now just rolling out of bed.
All right, now Tony Lee is here, and I can't. Is that Tony or is that Cecilia? I get them backwards. Cecilia or Tony? Both. Cecilia's at work. Cecilia's at work, and Tony's at home. Danny's at home. Serge Cruz goes to work, and he's had a lot of people from work get sick. But he still wears a mask and makes sure there's distance. But they've had a lot of lockdowns at where he works. Mary Grimmy is at home, and I was supposed to be back. That Miami-Dade College was talking roughly about me coming back, and I prepared my speech that I wasn't coming back, and they looked at the number of people in my classes, and they found that my classes draw people from all 7 campuses and beyond. And they said, if we have you come back, that means we're going to lose all those people. And I said, well, that's too bad, because I wasn't coming back anyway, because I don't want to run the risk of 4 or 5 people who are anti-vaxxers being in class and they're sick and they're young, and that's fine, but it's not fine for me. So I was prepared to say goodbye. And she said, oh, no, don't even think of that. In fact, we gave you your summer courses already, live from home. But the problem with I understand Maureen's situation is, what do you do if you're surrounded by people who've been vaccinated and wear masks? That's one thing. But when you've got, like in this country, people who are so angry about vaccination, and they refuse to get vaccinated, I don't want to be around them. They have
Exactly.
their right. They have their, now, by the
Me
way,
neither.
I have turned down, by the way, several weddings. Maria was amazed at them. I've turned down 8 weddings. They
Wow.
said, we need you to, I said, well, are you all vaccinated? Well, no, we're not. I said, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And one bride was a little annoyed. I said, do you think I'm going to put my heart transplant and my immunosuppressed system on the line because you're mad at me because I don't want to do your wedding? I said, I want you to think about that for a minute. If you're vaccinated and you wear masks, that works for me. But if you don't want to be, your choice is not to get vaccinated. But it also says to me that there's a new variant out, by the way, for Omicron. There's a new variant out now, and it's much more easily gotten. And if they said, if you're not vaccinated, if the other one haven't gotten you in the hospital, this will. So I just have gotten to the point I can only be around vaccinated people. I'm sorry. And if you're not vaccinated, I'm not really interested in being around you. And I never thought I'd have to say that, but that's the way it is. All right. It'll be interesting to see. I think Danny was right. 3 days is going to be a lifetime for us as this thing unfolds in the Ukraine. A month will seem like a year, I bet. The way things are going now, could anybody even begin to predict what's going to happen a month from now? I mean, seriously, isn't it fascinating? I don't know if anybody can even begin to predict what's going to happen.
Doc, I just wanted to come back to something that you said earlier. You spoke about the impact of the wired age that we're in on the possibility of accidental triggering of a nuclear weapon, right? And I don't really think that is that possible because of the numerous controls,
I hope you're right.
3-level controls. What is more likely is you have a tactical or battlefield nuke being triggered by some trigger happy soldier, and those are shorter range, as I said, battlefield nukes. That's more likely, because what happened in 2014 with the Buck anti-aircraft missile that shot down the Malaysian Airlines plane was exactly that. Some trigger happy Russian soldier, misinterpreted the signals that he was getting and fired off an anti-aircraft missile at a civilian aircraft and brought it down, right?
Is that what really happened? I never understood that. That's what happened with that, huh?
That's what happened.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the Dutch investigators who were brought in for forensic purposes to the scene of the crash identified the missile as a Russian Buck missile and traced it back to the unit that could have, was most probably able to fire it at this aircraft, and so on and so on. So anyway, the long story short, and I don't want to take up too much more time, is I think it's more likely to be a tactical battlefield nuke that is treated like that, and that's where you're going to get the nuclear thing than a large ICBM.
Either that, or can you imagine somebody being trigger happy or having mistakes and start actually lobbing them into Poland and hit some American troops and Polish troops, and then boom.
Yeah, well, that will change the game. That's a complete game changer if that happens.
I mean, just see somebody. By the way, I saw a couple of prisoners of war yesterday, Russian prisoners of war that the Ukrainians had captured, and one of these guys was like, he looked like he was 16. I'm sure he was 18, but he was incredibly young. And so when Ron talks about somebody making a mistake, getting the wrong missiles, the wrong things, and somebody like that is scared and has one of these weapons, I don't even want to think of what happens. Look what, did any of you ever recall? Well, there's no reason why you would. In the Korean War, we had several instances where our own artillery got the wrong grids and wound up shooting American soldiers and lobbing artillery shells into various hills in Korea. Pork Chop Hill was one of the ones that that comes up, and others where they got the wrong grid. And they were screaming, why are you, your artillery is hitting us. It's friendly fire. So imagine if some kid gets, and that's Americans with Americans, imagine some little kid, and I saw that kid, he looked incredibly young. Imagine somebody like that has something like this, doesn't know what to do, they're scared, things are starting to accidentally shoot, boom, off you go. And you're right, there's too many variables with too many scary weapons.
If and when the Russian army gets to the border between Ukraine and Poland, that will be very dangerous. Because, yeah, there's a real possibility of confrontation between Russian troops and Polish or other Western troops. Then I think they'll try to stay on each other, on their own sides of the border, but it'll be dangerous.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you all for sharing. I think we're all in agreement. Everything is up in the air. This is a totally new situation, and especially that being wired. The cyber attacks. This is all new in terms of warfare. Everybody being able to see everything. Just put up your phone and there it goes on TikTok and Reddit all over the place. You can have all the propaganda you want in the world, but when somebody's showing you a phone in real time, what's going on. The fact that the entire Russian general staff's phone numbers, addresses, and stuff were published for the world because of Anonymous declaring war against Russia. I mean, this is like totally, and I was very surprised that our intelligence was so accurate, which means they have capabilities that you and I are not aware of in terms of listening and stuff like that. In the meantime, my share tomorrow is on forgiveness. How do you even forgive something like this? And so I wish you well. I will hope that we are all safe and sound for another week. Jane, it's nice to have you visiting with us today from Las Vegas. Do visit often. What is this? I think some of us are confused. Did you mean the Malaysian flight or did you mean another flight?
We're both in flights, but one was over Ukraine, but I think lately there was the one over the Indian Ocean that went down. We don't know what happened there.
Right, the one over the Indian Ocean, we don't know. He's talking about the one in Ukraine, right?
Yeah. Talk about the one in Ukraine.
Right, okay. Okay, thank you. I never knew that there was a Russian missile that was shot off by mistake.
Yeah.
Did they admit it? Did they admit it?
No, they didn't admit, but remember that their people, Russians went in without any insignia on their uniforms, but they were Russian.
Oh, yeah, right.
So they were definitely Russian units. They were Russian weapons. They were, looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's a duck. You know what I mean?
Oh, so, Holly Duck. Yes. Sorry. Holly's last name is Duck. Careful, Kenneth. That's your cousin. All right. All right. Any final comments? Pat, anything to say before we wrap up?
No, I'm happy. I'm glad to be back. I was away last week. So looking forward to getting back to the book.
Okay. That's next week, Pat, up there in Forest Hills. Anything to say before we?
I actually ended up going to a fundraiser last night. There's a bar here in town that's owned by a couple of, the wife is from Ukraine and the husband is from Russia. And they were, having a little thing, drink specials and whatever, to raise money and support. So it was nice to be able to, at least feel like, you're doing something, even if it is consuming alcohol, but it was fun.
Ron, anything to say before we?
No, that's it. I just, wish everybody a safe week until we get back together again.
Doug, from you're closer to all of this, literally.
Yeah, we're just hoping that the peace will prevail.
Has Christian said anything from Helsinki? Is he about what the?
No.
Okay. John, anything to say before we leave?
I just hope it all turns out for the better.
All right.
And so
AJ, any comments before we go?
No, I agree with what John said. I just am learning a lot. I don't read the paper enough, and so it's been a wonderful history lesson. So I really enjoy everybody's comments, and thank you.
Holly, I take it it's not 80 degrees there from the way you're dressed.
Oh, it's 16. It's going to go up to 25 today. So it'll be great.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Maureen, thank you for seeing us. I'm surprised you recovered so quickly. Okay. All right. Roy, it's always a pleasure to see you from Bellingham. All right, Nanette, good morning. Anything to say, Nanette, before we leave?
I'm feeling a kind of poignancy because of what's going on in Ukraine. My great-grandmother's family escaped from Ukraine, from the Odessa area.
Oh, yeah.
And it was because she had a bunch of brothers who were in danger of being drafted into the Russian army. And that was back in the 1880s, I think. So, this Russian-Ukrainian thing has been going on for a very, very long time. I'm glad that my family is here, though, and not there.
Roy, I forgot to ask you, did you have any parting words you had for us?
No, just nice to see everyone. And yeah, I think all our hearts and minds are on Ukraine and hoping for the best.
I think that's Tony Lee or Cecilia. I'm not sure which one.
Hang on a moment. Jane has something to share.
Jane, yes.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Nanette just said.
We can't hear you, Jane.
Oh. I
Get
said
close to the mic.
Okay. Am I close enough now?
Yep, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to, reiterate what Nanette said. My family also has roots in the Ukraine. We immigrated from there in the 1890s to Hawaii for, fear of persecution. They were going to execute our family. They had us buried up to our necks, and our servants dug us out, and we all made the escape, kind of like the Swiss Family Robinson, over the mountains and over to the
Von Trapp family from Austria, but
right,
yeah.
yeah, and just to escape on boat to Hawaii. And the Russians even came back for their people. They tried to find them, and two of my relatives, one was killed. My great grandfather was killed painting a ship in dry dock on the scaffold, and my great grandfather was walking on a train track. The train was coming, and people were yelling at him to get off the track, and he just kept walking. So we think that was a suicide, because they knew they were coming for us. But it's a repeated thing in history with Russia wanting to take power over Ukraine.
The breadbasket of Eastern Europe.
Let me point out what they're trying to talk. In 1890, Russia had an actual program by the Tsar, a third, and a third. You kill a third of the Jews, you drive a third of the Jews away, and what was the other third? You convert. 1/3 or to be converted, 1/3 to be killed, and 1/3 are to be exiled out of the country, pushed out of the country. You can actually read the way it was worked. And so when you hear pogroms against the Jews in Russia and Ukraine, it's hard to believe that it would be that cold. And so it was a third and a third and a third. And a lot of the Jewish people we have in our country, the United States, came, their ancestors came during 1888 to 1895. And it was
on a personal note, my maternal grandfather, I was told he left Russia a few years before the First World War to avoid being drafted into the Russian army, where it was said Jews went in alive, but they didn't come out alive. So I sometimes would make a joke out of it. Say, yeah, I come from a long line of draft dodgers, but he had, understandable reasons.
So, there's a long history here. Okay, Serge, did you have anything to say? We never know where Serge is. Serge has said some very interesting jobs with T-Mobile. He's got a new one coming up. Serge, so are you here or where are you, on the road?
Yeah, I'm here. I'll be back in Hialeah in about an hour or so. But yeah, I'm here. Great to hear from everybody. I just leave you all with some words of levity. So what do you call a military officer who visits the bathroom frequently? You call him a lieutenant.
Okay.
Take care, everybody.
Oh, that was for Ron, right?
We don't know who Serge Cruz is. He's somehow
That was
hacked.
bad. That was
Mary Grimmy.
terrible.
Mary Grimmy. Any words for us, Mary? Mary Grimmy. She there? Mary?
Yes, sir.
You have any words for us before we leave?
Just everybody stay safe. I'm completely overwhelmed and avoiding the news so that I can keep my head on straight and figure out what's going on.
All right, well, peace to you all. Some of you I'll see tomorrow morning. And I do have another piece of information for you. Some of you may have not have seen this. As you know, we have a new affiliated community minister with us who's a chaplain. We now have somebody else who wants to join with us, who's also a chaplain. She's a hospice and bereavement chaplain from Illinois, and she started the process. So we will soon have 2 affiliated community ministers with us who are extraordinarily good people. A comment, if I can, very quickly. Before COVID, congregations missed out on the incredible abilities we have of clergy who are absolutely fascinating, but who worked at home because of wheelchair or other medical issues. They just were not connected to congregations. Come along Zoom, and that's not an issue. And we are finding that we're getting a reputation as being a congregation where you can really be who and what you are and not have to worry about that. And so we're meeting people who have incredible things to offer that would not have fit in templates before COVID. So you're going to be being introduced to Michelle in a few weeks. She attended a service with us when Besa was being elected by the congregation. We'll go through the same process, but we are very, very fortunate. And Michelle is a grief counselor and hospice worker, and Besa is doing all kinds of chaplaincy with different groups. The latest one is with youth groups in certain areas of the UUA. So I just share that with you, that it's weird how in the topsy-turvy times, some things happen that we would not have been possible. And meeting people like Michelle and Besa would have been off the radar. And now it's just the way things should be done. So I just share that with you. Be safe and well, everybody. Be safe and well. Some of you I'll see tomorrow. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.